I wouldn't start with this particular thing for little kids, but yeah, I mean, I actually have, there's a new video I've actually created of 10 basic movements for beginners. So I'd actually start with them, but some of those are included in that. The quiet hand is one of them. Understanding the sound point, although I don't use that terminology, would be about rebound, supple wrist, and integrating these in, because the most important thing with lessons with kids is that it's a successful experience, which means it needs to be fun. So we have to sneak up on these sort of things. My assertion is that if we do teach them these fundamentals, just as we do with, say, if you're learning how to skate, or do a martial art, or do any kind of athletic activity, if you get fundamentals from the beginning that involve whole body movement, then you're able to do so much more teaching and less correcting later. So yes, absolutely. However, would I get to the drill right away? I would say, if there is a sequence, would it be, let's say there aren't this many lessons, but let's say there are 400 lessons, and when does the trill come? Well, it's probably in the 50s or the 90s or something. It's like, there are other things to get to probably first along the way, but you might, in like places like that Schubert, you might find it in the repertoire where you're starting to integrate it in smaller movements. On the other hand, you might find, because the vibrato motion is something that can be taught to beginners right away, and just getting used to being able to do this, if they can do the quiet hand, then you might find that some of them are able to actually start to move the fingers, especially if you've done the vibrato motion, say, and be able to absorb that on the second finger, then absorb it on the third finger, then you could perhaps try it. So I don't know for sure right now, but for your particular situation, whatever student you might be thinking of, but it's certainly possible.
So I basically teach that you walk in toward finger 3 and then you walk out, because that's our tallest finger.
Interesting. Okay.
But it seems like what you're saying is you can do this for any. Is that what your cycling is?
Now, it depends on the context. You said, because I would actually say, and this is just opening a can of worms, but something to think about, that if you're walking in towards the third finger, in fact, with some people, especially as they grow, they may find it difficult unless they have, I have a few students where it actually gets hard for them to play up in the keys there. I would say, first of all, that I use three-dimensional motion, meaning that in any given moment, where we invest alignment, and then how can we maintain that alignment? So I actually come out when I play to 3. So that, because what happens, the supporting motion for the right hand is a counterclockwise arc. Notice that if I play this and I stop on in any given moment, I'm going to be in alignment with the fingers that are being supported by the tendons behind here. In other words, if I did this, if I go this way and I go over and under, clearly I'm out of alignment as I do this. So by going under in an elliptical fashion, I'm going to end up in alignment here. And it depends on what the gesture is. If you have 1, 2, 3 and you're playing a gesture and say that's the end of it, I'm going to want to come up into it. But if I come up high, then I'm high on the wrist too. And I don't know if this is what you're talking about. But so for what it's worth, and I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards, is that I would suggest going this way as opposed to in this case, unless the music calls for that, if there's a particular repertoire spot. So it's probably radical considering what you're saying. I have to have you show what you're doing exactly. So yeah, anybody else?
Yeah. A corollary to that, because so much of successful trill playing also involves the piano itself. And there's a wide difference from one instrument to another, the amount of resistance. You have to pay attention to the key as it comes up. So instead of thinking as they go down, you also have to think of how fast does the key come back, which is the opposite of thinking how to make the keys go down. As they release it. So it goes right along with what you're saying, but I also say it doesn't work for a little bit. But to find a pivot point in there so you can feel the key release, and you have to let it go before you can play the next one.
Well, so many people are playing, and I think it's actually okay that some people are playing additional instruments these days that don't have a true sound point the same way.
Right.
So it's a different thing. The idea that the key is coming up, sure. I think there's a sense that it's almost, you're almost not losing contact with the key. I don't think I am. And that goes along with the idea that the sound point is something you want to stay close to, because if you actually end up doing this, that's extra effort than if you're really staying within the space. You're staying much closer to the sound point. That allows you to make a smaller motion.
So I often will test on the key top, I'll put the ball board down and try the twill right there on there. And if you're successful, there's almost no sound. There shouldn't be a whole lot of rattling in there, even if it's a loud twill.
I see. You're like, yeah, so you're almost doing like that.
No extra work.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
That's a good idea. Good idea, thank you.
Well, it wasn't mine, it was Louis Nagel had that, in Michigan. He said, all right, now play it now. That was a pedal practice, but also for trills. Just put the cover over the keys, see if you can do it then.
And that with no sound.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? Well, thanks so much for coming today.